But I love the heat of summer. I do. But not everybody feels that way. In the most recent issue of Time magazine, there's a little data, this just in factoid. It says, research in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that people are less service-minded in the heat. Retail employees were 50% less likely to engage in offering to help customers when it's hot. Ay, ay, ay. Well, it's a good thing for the entire month of July that here at Unity of Wilmington, we are looking at ways to cool off when things get spiritually hot. So we have been the entire month looking at different strategies and perspectives in how to allow us that extra cool space, to be cool. We started out the month by talking about the freedom and the fireworks and how the perspective of recognizing that the horizon is just an illusion, that everything we see before us is not the totality of God. It's not the totality of our goodness. It's not the totality of our abundance. The horizon is just an illusion, and there's actually so much more for us to be, do, and have. Reverend Christie was here, and she told the story about a newlywed couple going on their honeymoon to this secluded cabin in the woods where they thought it was going to be peaceful every day. And they were entertained all day long by a family of woodpeckers. And so drumming all day, they finally got to ask themselves, well, what is their purpose? What is their gift to me? What can we take away from this experience? And that's how Woody Woodpecker, the cartoon character, was actually born, from that thing that you would have thought would have had them all hot and bothered. Last week we were gifted by Reverend Roxanne Grace from Christ Church Unity in Orlando, Florida, with the reminder that the word Beatitudes simply means be happy. That we don't have to put ourselves in hot water and suffer first before experiencing the kingdom of heaven. That the word meek actually means respond with love. And the activity of mourning is an expression of our feelings that takes us one step on our journey closer to that understanding of peace and love and joy. So I want to riff on that expression of mourning and talk about the expression of all of our feelings as a pathway to the divine, the expression of our feelings and our emotions as a pathway to allowing and recognizing that the kingdom of God is within, the kingdom of God is at hand, the kingdom of God is here, the kingdom of God is present. We just have some things in between us. Now, have you ever heard that expression, hot under the collar? Mm-hmm. And it means what? Angry. I'm angry. I'm angry. Even expressing our anger is a pathway to the divine. Jesus has many instances in the Gospels of being angry. I mean, he looked at a fig tree and the fig tree died, right? Well, there's these other things that also had him hot and bothered, and that was greed, hard-heartedness, and hypocrisy. So greed is the time where he went into the temple and he was so angry with the money changers, he turned over the tables because he said, how can you do that? How can you make money off of people's suffering? That's just wrong. Then being hard-hearted, he was accused of working on the Sabbath when he went to go heal the man with the withered hand. And he said, surely the holy work of God, healing, is more important than not working on the Sabbath. And so he got angry about that. And then there are all kinds of instances in the scriptures about hypocrisy. He says, take the plank out of your own eye first before you remove the speck from your brother's eye. Be the first among you. May the first among you be without sin. Throw the first stone. And then he finally, at the end of his life, was talking about Don't do like the scribes and the Pharisees do, because they don't walk their talk. They don't practice what they preach. The teachings are good. Their teachings are my teachings. And these teachings can invite us into an experience of the kingdom of heaven, but don't do as they do. Jesus saw anger and the expression of his anger as a spiritual path. Later in Christian scriptures, a follower of the Apostle Paul wrote in the letter to the Ephesians, "Be angry. Be angry and do not sin." Be angry and do not sin. Well, I think a lot of us growing up might have gotten those two confused, thinking that if we were angry, we were sinning, but they're actually one of those divine paradoxes. Go ahead, be angry, but do not sin. And I'll give you a 2017 kind of example. Let's just talk about road rage. Be angry, but do not sin. This is where the rubber actually hits the road. There was a study that the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety did, and in this survey, they recognized that 80% of the drivers expressed some version of road rage. Significant anger, aggression, or road rage behind the wheel in the past year. So if you were in that 80%, and I figure that a good bit of us are, because we're a reflection of our greater community, that's the way we roll. So don't worry. We're going to go through some spiritual solutions and maybe some greater clarity of how that road rage comes up in us. So in that 80%, approximately 8 million U.S. drivers have engaged in extreme examples of road rage, including purposely ramming another vehicle or getting out of their car to confront another driver. The study also found, and I think this is where we can start to breathe a little bit, the events precipitating the incidents were often remarkably trivial, and people involved were ordinary citizens. One of the authors said, people have been shot because they drove too slowly or played the radio too loudly, but violent traffic disputes are rarely the result of a single incident. Rather, they seem to be the result of personal attitudes and the accumulation of stress in the motorist's life. So let's just talk about what makes us hot under the collar, why or how what anger is. Robert Masters, in his book Spiritual Bypassing, says, anger is the primary emotional state that functions to uphold our boundaries. And I think that's fantastic. I think this is amazing when we think about anger serving us to uphold our boundaries, because healthy boundaries make for healthy relationships, and healthy relationships make for an experience available to all of us to have the experience of the kingdom of heaven. Makes sense, right? He goes on to say, when we feel anger, it is an indication that something is wrong. That's all. It's just an indication that something is wrong. A boundary has been crossed or a need has not been met. So what he's really saying is it might not have anything to do with the situation at all. My friend Gay Hendricks tells the story about going out on a good long bike ride, and he gets up one morning, it's a beautiful day, the air is crisp, he's feeling invigorated and exhilarated, and he's excited to get on his bike and go right up into the mountains. And so he's pedaling about 20 minutes, and he goes by the home of one of his colleagues. And as he goes by this house, he has a flurry of positive thoughts. He thinks, man, this guy is such a great guy to work with. He has just come up with so many valuable ideas and contributions to the field of academia just in the last year. I'm so happy for him that he's finding excitement and peace and happiness in his new marriage. And I just think he's a great guy. And he pedals on. And now he goes on his whole bike ride. He doesn't give the guy another thought. 4 hours later, he's coming down from the mountain. He's hot. He's dog-tired, he's hungry, he has a little bit of a headache, and all he wants to do is get home. So he's riding his bike, and now he's pedaling again by this colleague's house, and he has a whole other flurry of thoughts. And his thoughts is, gosh, I really don't like this guy's new wife. She's not the kind of person I ever want to talk to or hang out with, and I just don't understand why he can't see that. I mean, what is he, blind? And all those votes that he went against me on campus issues, I can't even believe it. And then he started to laugh because he recognized, well, number one, the guy probably wasn't even home, right? And that his thoughts had nothing to do with that person, that colleague at all. They had everything to do with his gay's own unmet needs. He was hot, he was hungry, he was tired. He wanted to go home. What a gift that shift is. What a gift that realization is that it doesn't even necessarily, our anger doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with the other person. In the recovery community, and I'm specifically talking about AA, there's a wonderful spiritual tool called HALT, H-A-L-T, and it's an acronym for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And really what it is, it's an assessment tool. How am I feeling? Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And if I'm feeling any of those things, then what am I really doing with those feelings? Am I projecting them onto somebody else? Or are they serving as a trigger for me to engage in unhealthy behavior? And really, it works like this. So you start with the first one, am I hungry? And it could be that you actually have a physical need to eat. I frequently do because I don't eat well. I mean to eat well, I have the good idea to eat well, I have the intention of eating well, but in the morning, most often, I would rather sleep. So I sleep until the last minute, and then I get up and I come to work. And now here I am at work, and I'm thinking on my way driving here, that's okay. Don't worry, you'll go out for lunch. Harris Teeter's right over here. I mean, I have lots of options. So now I'm here, I'm like, oh no, I'm having too much fun. I'm not that hungry, I can make it. And at 4 o'clock, Annette brings me peanut M&Ms. So you see, it could be physical hunger that I'm feeling. Or it could be the other kind of hunger. It could be the kind of hunger that's where you're hungry for acceptance or hungry for connection, hungry for being with other people. And the spiritual solution is community. Find community. If you have that kind of hunger, the spiritual solution is to find community. Here at Unity of Wilmington, we have a phenomenal spiritual community that shows up in all kinds of combinations throughout the week. So not only do we have celebratory services on Sunday, but we have the book clubs, we have contemplative services, we have all kinds of ways to come into community. So H is for hunger, A is for anger. And anger is more complex because there's a couple of different kinds of anger. And expressing our anger is good. We've already established that expressing anger is spiritual. But most of us have not learned how to express our anger appropriately or politely or actually in the highest service to the best of all concerned, which is why we have 80% of our drivers engaging in road rage. It's because we haven't learned how to express it in a safe and healthy manner. But there are spiritual solutions. So in this HALT, when we look at the A, one of the spiritual solutions is, especially if we notice that our anger's gotten into a loop, and it's in a loop, and here it comes again, and every time I see her, and every time I see somebody who looks like her, and every time, it's like, I don't hardly see, but I'm so wrapped up in my loop of anger, it's called resentment. The spiritual solution is prayer and forgiveness. Prayer and forgiveness. I went to the forgiveness workshop last week, and every day this week I've been invited to write 70 times. I forgive myself totally and completely for everything past, present, and future. It's a practice. It's a practice to address in a prayerful way what my resentments are and allow them to ease out and dissipate. A second spiritual solution for anger is movement. It's actually physical activity. It's really, well, let's just try it, because if you think about anger, the first thing that happens, well, maybe not the first thing, but eventually a body will get contracted. because you're really mad and you don't breathe much, so your face starts to turn really red. And then you grab onto whatever is close at hand and you hold on really tight, and finally you're so contracted that all you can do is sputter, sputter, sputter. So let's try it. You ready? Think of something. Allow that thought of anger to come up in you. Hold your breath. Suck it in really good. Imagine your face turning red. Hold on to your chair. Hold on to your chair. Okay, I know I'm not the only person that really ought to be doing this in the room, so just try it. Think of something. Suck your breath in. Think of your face turning red. Hold on to your chair. Hold on to your chair. Hold on to your chair. Just sputter, and then move. Move. I mean, it's like, let your arms move out. You know, in spiritual community today, it's like, this is how we're going to start moving. Because as soon as we start moving, we remember to breathe. And as soon as we remember to breathe, we can come home to God. In your real life, outside of this spiritual community, I invite you to take a walk, or go for a run, or jump in the ocean, or find a pool with permission to get in and go for a swim. But find something, turn on some music, and find something that invites you to move. Because the movement of your body is the first movement of that expression of anger. And then perhaps the most portable of all is meditation. Meditation is a spiritual solution to anger, to be still, to go within. Now there's two kinds of anger in particular that I'm going to talk about, and one of them is the righteous anger. Righteous anger is the kind of anger that Jesus had. Really, he had a good reason. Those boundaries were being crossed. And so he had a good reason. It was righteous anger. When we have righteous anger, it's very grounded and it's very calm. Yes, there should be no more drunk drivers on the road. Yes, I'm going to support Mothers Against Drunk Driving. That kind of righteous anger is very grounded and it's very calm, and it's the best and easiest kind to meditate with. Because when we go into meditation with that kind of anger, very often we have divine ideas, we have really amazing ideas of how we can participate in righting that wrong. But the other kind of anger is the anxious anger. It's the kind of anxious anger that's not really anger, but it shows up as anger. I mean, it walks like anger, it talks like anger, it quacks like anger, but it's not really anger. What it really is fear. It's fear of our personal safety, or it's our fear of getting hurt. If you think about road rage, where the rubber meets the road, somebody cuts you off and you go, arg. You're really scared. Like, I felt scared when that happened. So it's really about fear. Or if somebody says something to you that hurts your feelings, you just want to go back and hurt their feelings. It's not really fear. I mean, it's not really anger. It's that fear, and it's hurt. And for this kind of anger, to bring this kind of anger into meditation is probably the biggest gift we can give ourselves. Because it's here that we can remember our oneness with God. It's in meditation and being still that we can have that greater perspective. It's here in meditation that we actually simmer down, we cool off, and we can see more than we saw before. It's here in meditation where we remember love, and that we can touch that fountainhead of love. Our co-founder Charles Fillmore said, love is a divine principle, and man can know it in its purity by touching it at its fountainhead. There, it is not tinged in any way by man's formative thought, but flows forth in a pure, pellucid stream of infinite ecstasy. Doesn't that sound delicious? Absolutely delicious, especially when we're going pellucid stream of infinite ecstasy. It has no consciousness of good or evil, pure or impure, but pours itself out in great oceans of living magnetic power to be used by whosoever will. And we are the whosoevers. We are the whosoevers of the world. we have that fountainhead. We have access to it anytime we get still and go within. There's a beautiful story in the Zen tradition where a young man wants to become a student of Zen. He wants to engage in the practice of Zen. So he goes to the master and he says to the master, how do I get in? Where do I enter this Zen practice? And the master pauses for a moment and he says, do you hear that stream? And the young man says, yes I do. So then the master says, that is where you enter. Once we hear the stream, we can never not hear the stream. Once we make the shift from not being aware of our anger to being aware of our anger, once we make the shift from not appreciating our anger to appreciating our anger, once we make that shift from not valuing our anger, not allowing it to be expressed by suppressing it and keeping it and contracting it, once we make that shift, we can be angry and not sin. We can be angry and not sin. So let's sing our way into meditation. Let's sing our way into meditation with a Daniel Nahmod song, When I Pray. For prayer surely is the gateway.